Strategies in Clash of Clans. It's all about finding the right combination of troops, and sometimes players can come up with the most unbelievably broken armies that take over the meta for months or even years. Today, we're going to be looking at 5 strategies that were just too good.
Let's do this.
Gowiwi, which stands for Golems, Witches, and Wizards, was a popular strategy for Town Hall 9 and 10, primarily between 2013 and 2016. Basically, you drop golems, maybe 2 or 3, followed by the damage dealers, witches and wizards, and the rest of the attack was simply supporting them with spells. Gowiwi was essentially a twist on the already popular Gowiwi strategy. Basically, when witches were added in July 2013, players figured out that if you take the P.E.K.K.A out of the equation and add witches, it was a far more effective strategy. Gowiwi turned out to be better than Gowiwi at wiping. Suddenly, Gowiwi was everywhere. Nobody was safe. These witches slapped so damn hard, they had to be nerfed just 1 month after release, reducing their attack range from 5 tiles to just 3. And while that did help, Gowiwi went nowhere. See, what made Gowiwi so powerful was that the witches and wizards were basically untouchable. The golems would protect them from the defenses, and the skeletons the witches spawned would protect them from traps because they would activate them in advance before the witches and wizards got to them. The basis of Gowiwi was essentially to make defenses and traps focus on the golems and skeletons, while the witches and wizards shredded everything, including heroes and clan castle troops. It was the perfect combination. But Gowiwi was not some impenetrable strategy, of course. Nerfs were inevitable. In January 2016, the Eagle Artillery now dealt 3 times more damage to golems and golemites, the main tank of the army. And then in March 2016, the witches were nerfed pretty heavily, the skeletons' HP being reduced and no longer being able to trigger traps. With now weaker golems at Town Hall 11 and skeletons that no longer protected the damage dealers, this basically marked the end of Gowiwi as we know it. Of course though, Gowiwi has remained pretty popular below Town Hall 11, especially over the years with numerous buffs to witches and even that 3x damage to golems being completely removed. But without that skeleton ability, Gowiwi will never return to its former glory. Although traditional Gowiwi is still used today, a different variation called Witch Slap is much more common nowadays. Super Wizard Blimp, or Blizzard, stands for the combination of the Battle Blimp Siege Machine, Super Wizards, and invisibility spells. Blizzard is not an army by itself, it's more of a technique used within other strategies like Lalo. But today we're focusing on Blizzard itself, as that's what was OP. The origins of Blizzard can be traced back to a content creator called Judo Sloth. In December 2020, there was an update that added the Super Wizards and Invisibility spell. And in trying to figure out use cases for this new spell and troop, Judo puts Super Wizards in a battle blimp, and then sends it into the base. When the blimp goes down, he then drops invisibility spells and rage on the wizards. The results are wizards that shred a lot of defenses, all while invisible. This was the birth of Blizzard. As its popularity grew, Blizzard became an essential piece to a lot of strategies. You send the blimp and wizards to take out the town hall and core defenses, and then you're left with a base that has been stripped out of its center. The rest of the attack is pretty simple. Clean up, that's all. Now, I think it goes without saying, but Blizzard was hilariously broken. Players were trying to figure out, how do we even defend against a blimp that is essentially a block of TNT heading straight for the center of my base? It didn't seem fair at all, because it wasn't. It was too good. Blizzard was at its strongest between December 2020 until the end of January 2021, where the Super Wizards were nerfed, dealing way less damage. However, the technique went absolutely nowhere. The Super Wizards were still a very popular choice, and some even opted in to bring super archers instead, or other troops. In February 2022, the battle blimp was nerfed, dealing less damage when destroyed. But this didn't really do much, as the blimp wasn't really the reason it was so powerful. It wasn't until June 2023 where all siege machines were changed to deploy troops way faster, meaning now it was significantly harder to execute Blizzard properly. The chances of your troops dying was pretty high now, and for many, this marked the end of casual Blizzard, if you will. It is still around today, of course. In fact, you may see these still pop up in your recommended, but it's certainly not as easy to pull off and not nearly as effective as it was years ago. Lavaloonian, or what is referred today as Lalo. It's a little different, but for the most part, the armies consist of the same three troops: Lava Hound, Balloons, and Minions. Sometimes. Now, Lalo is still widely used. In fact, it almost seems like it's the last OG strategy that has remained popular. Some say it's difficult to learn though because of its reliance on other factors. You can't just use Lalo most of the time anymore. But once upon a time, Lavaloonian was so broken, they added a whole ass defense to counter it. Traditional Lavaloonian started in 2014 when the Lava Hound was added. It quickly became the most popular air strategy for Town Halls 9 and 10 because of its perfect synergy with Balloons and Minions. The Lava Hound would go distract the air defenses, while the Balloons shredded everything else, and the Minions would clean up. For a while, it was pretty dang foolproof, and what made it amazing is that it required no prep work, no queen charge or pulling heroes or any of that baloney. Just send it in, bro. It was pretty much set and forget, besides having to drop spells, but I mean, that's easy. Sometimes you could even do it without heroes. It was crazy. But eventually, Lavaloonian would need to be nerfed, and it did. But not entirely from balance changes. It all started with the addition of the Air Sweeper. It did no damage, but it pushed everything back. All of a sudden, you couldn't just set and forget your army. Now you had to account for a whole ass defense that was supposed to counter the very army you were using. And just a couple of months later, they added a second one. Also, player bases just got smarter over time. Years and years of Lavaloonian shredding everyone's base really changed the landscape. The most popular bases would strategically place the air defenses and air sweepers to make it difficult for Lavaloonian to simply sweep through it. But there's more. In May 2016, Balloons were given a change that increased their attack rate, meaning the bombs would drop faster, but each of them doing less damage than before. This meant that Balloons would hang at defenses for longer, and so if you wanted Balloons to one-shot a defense, more Balloons were required. All of these changes that I just mentioned would change Lavaloonian forever, and it made it so that you had to strategize way more than before. This is the reason why, as time went on, especially with new town halls and beefier defenses, Lavaloonian went from a spam army to something that required a little extra work from you, like a queen charge, blizzard, different troops, or bringing entirely different spells. But at least traditional Lavaloonian still prevails at lower town halls. Root Rider Valkyrie spam. The name should be pretty self-explanatory. It all started immediately upon the Root Rider's release in December 2023. There was no doubt that they were insanely overpowered, having almost as much HP as a golem, being able to break through walls with ease, and having very high HP, all for 20 housing space. What a deal. Now, while Root Riders alone were pretty good, Valkyries only amplified it, and having got a new level earlier that year, it was the perfect combination. The Root Riders would open up the base and act as a shield from all of the defenses, while the Valkyries absolutely shredded everything in sight. And if you're wondering why it made such a perfect combination, it's because the Root Riders single-handedly solved the main issue holding the Valkyries back: walls. Combine both of these troops with the Apprentice Warden for even more HP, as if anything needed more HP, and overgrowth any defenses that may cause a problem, the strategy became beyond broken. It almost seemed like no one could fail to get a 3-star without ever practicing the strategy. I mean, just drop it all, man. But now, let's talk about the downfall. In February 2024, the Root Rider's HP was decreased by a few hundred, but this nerf was pretty laughable as it almost had no effect on the meta. In March 2024, they tried reducing the damage by 20 at all levels and even less HP. But once again, it felt like it did nothing. An important thing to know about these nerfs and why they were so insignificant is that as the Root Riders became weaker, they still did what they needed to do. Shield from defenses, break walls, and do a lot of damage. And plus, players would just bring more Valkyries to supplement for any damage lost from the nerfs. It is as though the nerfs never really happened. That is until June 2024, the Root Riders got a very big nerf, and this one was hard to ignore. Their HP was reduced again, but the real kicker was that they now did 50% less damage. Yikes. But funny enough, the Valkyries got slightly more damage. So once again, the meta shifted to utilize way more Valkyries, but at least this time it takes a bit more strategic planning. Also, are we even talking about the same strategy anymore? This sounds like Valkyrie spam. I think it's safe to say that the original Root Rider and Valkyrie strategy from December 2023 has lost its magic and has evolved into something entirely different. Feels like 2016 again with all these Valkyries. Hog Riders, one of the first spam attacks to take over the meta, but not the first. The attack consisted of first luring and taking out the clancaster troops and heroes, if you wanted to guarantee a 3-star anyways, and then drop all of your Hog Riders and heal them as they go around the base and make defenses disappear. The rise of the Hog spam started shortly after a buff they received in August 2013. The buff made it so that they targeted defenses only while dealing more damage. You could say the developers were feeling very generous with this buff. During this time, the Hog Riders were incredibly OP, so much that players were even attacking town halls above them and still 3-starring. It was like the modern day Root Rider or the 2016 Bowlers. The reason why they were so effective was because there was no town hall in the game that could handle 30 or 40 plus Hog Riders. It overwhelmed the defenses, and any chance they had at beating the Hog Riders was circumvented by the use of 3 or more heal spells. They were pretty much unstoppable, and there was no base you couldn't 3-star with mass Hog Riders. But then, over the next year, the Hog Riders would face an uphill battle. Their HP was reduced twice in 2013, but that clearly wasn't enough as the Hog Riders were still incredibly strong. They even tried to increase the cost of Hog Riders in January 2014. I don't know what they were thinking about that one, but that happened. Oh damn, I can't use the Hogs anymore because they cost too much. Nah, but really, the final blow wouldn't be until July 2014, where they now took 1.5 times more damage from giant bombs. This may seem insignificant, but because of this change, this meant that putting 2 giant bombs together would result in fresh bacon. Whoa. However, the Hog Rider meta didn't immediately disappear, it just became less popular, as now a simple combination of traps could ruin your entire attack. It took a while for bases to catch on, so it wasn't a huge deal, but yeah, by 2015 the Hog Riders were not as foolproof, especially after they added the bomb tower to the game. Mass Hog Riders is still quite popular, mostly at lower town halls, but like many strategies in this video, it's not as straightforward as it used to be. It requires a little bit more prep work and planning. But yeah, that wraps it up. Those are the armies that immediately came to mind when thinking of too strong. There's obviously way more we can talk about. If you guys have any suggestions, I'll look into them for any potential follow-up. If I do, I don't know, let me know if you want one. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, Havoc Gaming out. Peace!